Today, we're getting into something that's both deeply personal and, frankly, dangerously strategic. We're going to break down the mechanics of anxiety, but not just as a mental health topic, as a vulnerability. A vulnerability that can be seen, understood, and, in the wrong hands, exploited. So this isn't just about what anxiety feels like. It's about a subtle, powerful type of psychological influence. Consider this a warning.
Okay, let's really land on this, because this one idea, it's the absolute key to everything that follows. An emotional safe house. Just think about what that really means. For someone whose inner world is a constant storm of fear and self-criticism, finding a place of total non-judgmental acceptance isn't just nice, it's intoxicating. And it's right there, in that incredible feeling of relief, that the door to influence, to seduction, to manipulation swings wide open. So first, to really understand the trap, we need to understand the battlefield. And that battlefield is the anxious mind itself. What's actually going on when we feel that constant, gnawing worry? And more importantly, how do our own attempts to make it stop actually make us more vulnerable? Let's be super clear here. This is not about getting butterflies before a big meeting. This is a physiological state. It's when your brain's alarm system, the part that's supposed to fire off when you're in real danger, gets stuck in the on position. It's like the smoke detector's blaring 24/7, but there's no fire. It's ringing for emails, for social invites, for just thinking about tomorrow. Your body is basically marinating in stress hormones, convinced it's in constant low-grade danger, even when you logically know you're perfectly safe.
And here's the really cruel twist with anxiety. It creates this unbearable feeling, right? So naturally, we do anything we can to make it stop. We instinctively reach for coping mechanisms. And these things, they feel like they're working in the moment. They give us relief. But as we're about to see, they're the very things that end up strengthening anxiety's grip. In a way, we end up building the bars of our own cage.
This right here perfectly shows the trap in action. Let's say you're anxious about going to a party. You decide to stay home, and boom, instant relief. That wave of calm feels great, but your brain just learned a very dangerous lesson. Avoiding the scary thing makes the bad feeling go away. So next time, the urge to avoid is even stronger. Pretty soon, one skipped party turns into avoiding all social events. Then it's avoiding phone calls. Your world just gets smaller and smaller, and your comfort zone becomes a prison. The very thing you did to feel safe makes your anxiety more powerful.
And avoidance rarely works alone. As you can see, people often turn to other things to numb that fear. Maybe it's a couple of drinks to take the edge off, but that can easily create a cycle of dependency and what they call rebound anxiety, which is often worse. Or maybe it's just isolation. Seeking safety by being alone feels right, but it starves you of real human connection, which, ironically, just fuels more loneliness and makes the anxiety stronger. These aren't solutions, they are vulnerabilities waiting to be found. So, if these ways of coping just create these huge vulnerabilities, it brings up a much deeper question, right? Why are so many of us feeling this kind of profound anxiety in the first place? For a really compelling answer, we can look to the psychologist Carl Jung. He saw anxiety not just as some random disorder, but as a symptom, a sign of a deep, unseen war going on inside of us. Jung's theory here is just fascinating. He said we all have a persona. Think of it as your social mask. It's your professional face, your polite at the dinner party face, your perfectly filtered Instagram face. You need it to get by. But then we also have a shadow. Now, the shadow isn't evil. It's just everything else. All the parts of ourselves we hide because we're afraid they're not acceptable. Our raw ambition, our messy emotions, our anger, our secret desires. Jung believed that so much of modern anxiety comes from the growing gap between the perfect mask we're performing and the real, complicated person we've pushed into the shadows. So what happens when we start to believe that the mask is all we are? Well, this incredible tension starts to build inside. That low-level, constant anxiety you might feel, Jung would say that's your shadow, your true self knocking on the door. It's an alarm bell, basically screaming, hey, you're more than this performance. You're ignoring huge parts of yourself, and it's making you sick. The anxiety is a symptom of a soul fighting itself, trying to keep up a performance while your authentic self is desperately trying to get out. And underneath it all, What's the number one feeling driving this whole crisis? It's a deep, profound lack of purpose. When we're only living through the mask, our life starts to feel hollow. We lose our internal compass, our why. And without a real purpose to guide us, every little challenge feels huge and overwhelming. We just feel lost, restless. And that emptiness, it's the perfect breeding ground for anxiety. And this isn't just about individuals. It can happen on a massive scale. The Weimar Republic in Germany is a truly chilling example. After the trauma of World War I, the entire nation's identity, its collective persona, was shattered. Then came economic collapse, total social chaos. You had a whole country gripped by anxiety and fear. From a Jungian view, this created a psychic vacuum. The population was desperate for any kind of certainty, any new purpose to stop the chaos. And that made them tragically vulnerable to an extremist ideology that offered a very simple, very rigid new identity. It's a terrifying reminder of how collective anxiety can be exploited by those offering a seductive but deadly sense of purpose. Okay, let's connect the dots. We've seen how anxiety creates these vulnerabilities and how it often comes from a deep lack of purpose. Now, we're going to expose how these very human struggles become a step-by-step playbook for manipulation. And I have to say this again, this is not an instruction manual. This is a warning so you can see the plays coming. The first move in this playbook is by far the most powerful. The manipulator doesn't come on strong. They do the exact opposite. They become an island of calm in the other person's storm. See, an anxious person is so used to hearing, just relax or don't worry about it, which of course just makes them feel worse. The manipulator doesn't do that. They just listen. They give off the slow, unhurried, totally non-judgmental vibe. They don't try to fix anything. They just create a space where the anxious person feels like they can finally, for once, just be. And that feeling, that moment of being able to finally exhale, to put down the armor without being judged, it's like emotional oxygen. It is deeply, profoundly addictive. The manipulator becomes the source of that relief. The target's nervous system literally starts to connect that person's presence with safety. This isn't just friendship forming. This is the deliberate construction of that emotional safe house. And inside that safe house, a deep, uncritical trust starts to grow. That trust is the foundation for everything else. Okay, so once that trust is locked in, the manipulator introduces the next piece of the puzzle. They provide the one thing the anxious, purpose-starved mind is craving: a compass. They project this aura of absolute certainty. They don't talk about what they hope to do. They talk about their plans as if they're already happening, as if they're inevitable. And for someone who feels totally lost and adrift, that kind of certainty is like a lighthouse in a hurricane. It's mesmerizing. This is the real core of the seduction of purpose. The manipulator doesn't just show off their own certainty, they subtly offer it up as the cure for the target's anxiety. The unspoken promise is incredibly powerful. You're lost, but I know the way. Stick with me and you won't have to feel so scared anymore. And just like that, the dynamic shifts. It goes from simple attraction to emotional dependency. The target starts to feel like they need the manipulator, not just for comfort, but for direction in their own life. This brings us to the final and most surgical tactic. Generic compliments? Totally useless. The manipulator has been watching. They've been listening. They've figured out the target's core insecurity. Is it a fear of not being smart enough? Or not being worthy of love? Or being a fraud? The manipulator then offers reassurance that is laser-targeted to that specific wound. They don't say, "You're great." They say, "The way you think about things is what makes you so brilliant." They become a perfect mirror, reflecting back an idealized version of the person the target wishes they could be, making them feel uniquely, profoundly understood. I have to be crystal clear here. This is not a game. This is emotional surgery, performed by an amateur with selfish motives. Pinpointing and soothing someone's deepest wound is handling the most fragile part of their soul. In the right hands, like a therapist or a truly loving partner, this can be incredibly healing. But in the hands of a manipulator, it's a weapon. It creates a bond that feels so powerful it can seem like fate. But it's a bond built on the calculated exploitation of someone's pain. So let's pull the curtain all the way back.
let's be brutally, perfectly clear about what this playbook really is, what this dynamic is really about. It is not connection. It is control.
Just look at the two sides of the coin here. On one side, you have the target. They're experiencing something life-changing. They feel safe, maybe for the first time ever. They feel seen. They think they've found deep trust, maybe even a soulmate. But on the other side, the manipulator's reality is completely different. For them, this is all a transaction. They are exploiting a vulnerability to gain influence. They are creating dependency on purpose to get something they want, status, money, ego, whatever. One person is building a relationship, the other is running a psychological operation.
And because the whole thing is built on a lie, there's really only one way it can end. It's inevitable. Once the manipulator gets what they want, or maybe just gets bored, the support gets pulled. The calm anchor vanishes. The certain guide suddenly doesn't have a map anymore. The soothing spotlight goes dark. And for the target, this isn't just a breakup. It's the demolition of their emotional safe house, without any warning. The betrayal is so unforgettable because the manipulator didn't just break their heart, they shattered their trust in their own judgment, leaving them more anxious and more wounded than ever before.
So why? Why did we just walk through this whole dark playbook? The point is not to teach you how to become a player, it's to arm you. It's to give you the patterns and the language so you can recognize when your emotional needs are being met with genuine care versus when they're being exploited for control. Knowing these tactics is a shield. It lets you see the game, protect yourself, and hopefully choose to engage with people from a place of real respect, not strategy. So the final question isn't really about seduction at all. It's about character. In a world this full of anxiety, this knowledge is a type of power. Are you going to use it to protect or to play? The choice is yours.